everyone, it's Toby Maguire, and welcome to Therapist Podcast. Today we are talking to Ilona Pamplona. She is the postmodern oracle, a master of astrology, a transformative life coach, and a word wizard, and those are just a few of her incredible titles. I really hope you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as I did having it. So without further ado, here is Ilona Pamplona. So let's dive in.
Okay.
Ilona, I'm super excited to talk to you.
I'm so glad to talk to you again. It's been a while.
It has been a while, yeah. I know that a while back I tried pushing something like this forward, but I don't know. The way I talk about it in my first episode, how I needed to mature, the project needed to mature. I think everything just needed some maturity, including myself. So now it's like I have a more clear point of view, and I was like, I want to invite you back because I see you as somebody who is incredibly intelligent and beautiful as well, but also just like an entrepreneur that I aspire to be. So I was like, I have to talk to Ilona. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, like, tell me your story. Where are you from and how did you grow up, and like,
how much time do we have? No, I'm kidding. I got the elevator speech. So this is like such a great question because it could be as big as one wants or as like condensed as one wants. And I think that if like one were to ask like, well, who am I and how did I get here? I like the way I think about it these days is I got here through magical realism. Why? Because my dad was from Colombia, the land where magical realism was popularized. And my mom was from Ecuador, and they met in Long Island at a party.
At a party
in Long Island, and they met, and I was the firstborn out of this like really beautiful love story. And so I always think about my life as like I was a product of love. I came out of like two circumstances that should have never come together because my father was a poor farm worker from Colombia. My mother was like a socialite from Ecuador. And only in America would those two have gotten married, fell in love, and had kids until the day one of them passed away. And so I was given a lot of opportunities to explore my magic because my mom believed in spiritual fluidity is what I call it. I call her spiritual fluid. Like, yeah, we had the baby Jesus, but we had the Ganesh and we had the Buddhas and we had the Lakshmis. Like my mom, whatever's good luck, my mom would be like, we're doing this. We're creating.
I love that.
And so I grew up in a very like magical home. Even though my dad was very patriarchal, he was very loving, which is like not typical of a macho man from Latin America. And so we had these like expanders, like these people who were beyond what they should have based on their circumstances. And so I feel like my life was very expansive. I got to try things that I wouldn't have tried. I got to play in different containers, like, so I was educated, like, everyone is in the United States. And yet, while I had a job, I played with like anything I wanted. I tried graphic design. I tried screen printing. I liked it. Was I the best? No. Was I the worst? Absolutely not. Like I had clients who opened for Lollapalooza at one point.
Oh, wow.
I got to travel with a job. Like I had a job for 15 years that allowed me to travel the country and the world. Like I've been to places like Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan thanks to it. So like what got me here specifically to this work though was workplace abuse, where I was like, this does not feel good. This does not feel like this is not what life is about. Life is not about paying your bills and enduring abuse because you got to pay your bills. And that's when I started a spiritual path, which my mom gladly opened as a child. And I just decided to take it and integrate it, making my own. I took courses, workshops. Like I would be in yoga studios with Gabby Bernstein before she was at the level that she was, right? So I invested in going, what is possible for me? And I knew that spirituality and guiding others was a core foundation of it. And so that's why I use also so many modalities, because my mom raised us with Walter Mercado. So astrology was in me since I was like in her belly. Like I could tell by the time I was 5 if someone was a Taurus, a Pisces, a Virgo, or a Libra, because we had a lot of those in my family. Like I could literally be a 5-year-old and be like, that's a Taurus if I've ever seen one. And just like I was always curious and adding more modalities and adding more things that helped me be better, that also helped others be their best selves. And so that's how I became a coach that integrates spiritual modalities and esoteric knowledge to get people to the next level. So that's kind of my elevator speech, even though it's not that elevatory.
No, I love it. And it's funny because I do have a question here about like what came first, the coaching or the astrology? Like
Oh,
the chicken or the egg. And then it sounds like you just said the astrology kind of came first.
yeah.
And then your mom and still your parents really, you said you're a product of love. Sounds like your parents really instilled like, I want to spread love around. And then coaching kind of came to life for you.
Yeah. Coaching
Now,
was like the catalyst to put it all together.
interesting. Now, you brought through the idea of magical realism, and I wrote that down because as far as of the recording of this episode, right now in your bio and Instagram, you have I demystify your life's purpose by normalizing esoteric experience. That to me sounds kind of like the magical realism. Talk me. I know that you're also a self-classified word nerd, which I love. So talk to me through that sentence in your bio and also magical realism. What does that mean?
Okay, love it. So demystifying your life purpose was my fancy word nerd way of saying I'm your life coach. Like I want to stop making your purpose a mystery. Like a lot of people act like what they're here to do is so is like unattainable or unreachable or really confusing. And the more I learned spiritual tools and esoteric tools, so I demystify your life's purpose by normalizing your esoteric experiences. As a collective, we've been disenfranchised from some of these ancestral tools that connect us to our intuition ultimately. And so for me, and you and I know, right? There are people who take esoteric knowledge, whether it's astrology, whether it's any shamanistic work, whatever, and they make it like only they are the ones who can understand the work, right?
Absolutely not.
And I'm like, it's not that, like, I mean, some people were trained to hold it to a certain level of sacredness, but all of us have access to the information and the knowledge. We've just been told by culture or religion or the patriarchy or whatever, or fears that we shouldn't be accessing them. And so for me, I take this work very seriously. This is where the coaching and the esoteric work comes in. Like I'm a coach you, and to coach, I really have to navigate from a certain level of ethics, right? I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to pull out of you what is inherent in you. And I do that by bringing in these like really traditional old school stuff that we've been told through fear not to do. And it's like amazing. So I primarily use astrology and I've been sprinkling in human design. And when I bring this together for someone who's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life, or I don't know why my life is here, people are like, holy crap, that makes so much sense. And like they do stuff. Like I've had clients who have taken a $400 side hustle and made it a multiple six-figure business.
That's
I
amazing.
have clients who have been in abusive like live-in situations and then moved out and are living on their own for the first time because they didn't have the courage. They didn't know that was possible for them until they saw their chart was saying, hey, you need to do things for yourself. And then you have space for a partner. But you shouldn't just throw yourself into a partnership thinking you're going to find yourself as per the chart. Some people have another story, right? And so when we use these esoteric tools, we can actually understand our purpose.
Wow.
And so that's the magical realism, right? The magical realism is when we like, there's magic to who we be. And when we access that magic, our life goes next level, and not because of like some patriarchal, like, well, you followed the rules. It's like, no, you believed in magic. You believed that there was more possible for you. And then you created magic in your life in that way.
Oh, I love that. Believing the possibilities. Yeah, I'm definitely growing and leaning into that, more and more, hopefully in my work. And you did bring through the idea of you kind of like when I asked about like tell me your story, and you brought through this question of what is possible for me. That's what took you like traveling, and you met so many different people, and you had every time I meet you, I think you have a different story of how you met somebody or have a different life experience. I'm like, this woman is incredible. And it sounds like this question of what is possible for me, you just want to offer that to other people. Where did that question come from? Did it come from you, or was it instilled in you? Or
great question. I would say that my mom definitely instilled that in us, because my father my father, even though he was like, he poured love. My dad's gift was that he poured love into, he was the most loving person. Like actually from an energy perspective, I always think that my father was more feminine in his feminine energy. My mother was more in her masculine energy, because my father would like, when they moved to Florida, he cried the whole 2 days of the ride to
Really?
Florida. He's like, I miss you, I miss you. And my mom's like, we're not dead. See you when we get there. Come visit. And yet on the other side, my mom, from like a creation perspective, was very much in her feminine, where my father would be like, you know, I used to, when I was a young person, I used to want to be a fashion designer. I used to want to be a singer. And my father would be like, you know, yeah, we're immigrants, like that. You could scale it down a bit, scale it down a bit. And my mom would be like,
Oh,
what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Like, make it happen. It's up to you. You do it. It's your life. And so I had this like, which one is it? Do I do it or don't? Do I do it or don't? And so I feel like I was raised with at least a possibility of thinking beyond. I didn't always act beyond. And so for me, the workplace abuse was the catalyst about, okay, like I'm going to think beyond this, but now I'm going to do something else because what I'm doing is not working.
what an incredible perspective, especially as a coach now, because I'm a big believer that lived experiences trump academic experience, right? Although you
Credentials.
have a
Yeah.
master's degree in coaching, which I want to hear about that too. But then like you had this like dualistic nature of your parents being like, hey, cut it down. No, go for it. And now you're seeing that in your clients, in your coaching clients of like, I'm afraid of doing this. And you're like, no, bro, like go for it, see what's possible. And then they achieve it and then they open their eyes and it's like, oh crap, I am able to do that.
Yeah. And like, so from a coaching, from an academic framework perspective of coaching is, what do you want?
Mm,
And then I support a client to be like, well, how are we going to make that happen? And so when you're raised with like that idea of like, what do I want? And like, you really step into the possibility, you create from a logical perspective, you create all of the steps necessary to make it happen. From, if you believe in the energy field, then you create this quantum, you know, alchemy, where the universe conspires to attract and bring into your field the things that make that happen. For example, I used to want to sing, Icaro. Like I wanted to be a famous singer. All I knew is like I wanted to hang out with famous people. And like if you know me, you know I have like tons of 6 degrees of separation stories. Like, and it's I actually went on a date the other day, and the person was like, this seems completely fabricated. I'm like, well, I have pictures to prove it. And I
oh
can
yeah.
understand how going from like, I met Paul Walker on a trip that I went to Cancun with MTV, all the way to like, I'm on a business trip and sitting next to Deepak Chopra seems absolutely fake. And yet that is my reality, because I always had the intention that I was going to spend space and time with people of influence. Because for me, some people think it's superficial, but for me, it's like, these are people of influence. And I feel like I have a message, and I feel like the more people of influence are in my field, the further my message goes. I don't want this to be stuck with me. I don't want this message to be here. I want everyone to hear that life is possible.
I'm right there with you. As an entrepreneur, yeah, it's I think as an artist or as an entrepreneur or as a coach, or just, to me, the idea of entrepreneurship is that there's something within you that you have to share with other people, and you believe it so much that other people get it too. Um,
Yes.
that opens up, like, I have 20,000 questions.
We have
So
time.
you talked about meeting different people and how you travel. So let's take one at a time. How has traveling influenced you and expanded your mind, and how does it influence you now in your business?
I love this question. So there are a couple of ways that travel expanded my mind and influenced my business. The way it expanded my mind is it made me see how, no matter what country you're in, what language you speak, what religion you're indoctrinated in, or you're practicing of, sorry, I don't mean to be indoctrinated, but like whatever your practice is, your faith system practice is, or even what gender or non-gender or exploration of self you're in, we all have the same core desires. Like, we want to do better, we want to help our families, we want to overcome, rise above the things that we believe have held us back, no matter what country, language, background, whatever. Everyone has like this core core wanting of going to the next level.
Mm.
And the distinction is some people do it for themselves and some people want to do it for the collective. Some people do want to help the world or their country or their town. And some people are like, nah, bitches, I just want to like shift into like my destiny. Like, I don't want to be broke anymore. It sucks. And regardless, the idea is there's like an internal betterment desire. Some people are open to acknowledging it, some people are not. And then it's also funny because when I got into astrology more formally, my rising sign is Sagittarius, which it lends itself to someone who speaks languages. I speak many languages,
You
and
do.
I've travel, and I have a lot of planets in the ninth house, which is also higher learning and travel. So I'm like, oh, and this all makes sense. Like I had such a focus of language culture in my life because I also had this planetary thing, and then you see how I also saw how faith is expressed in different cultures, right? Like I've been to China on like a Lunar New Year where people just
Oh wow, that's gotta be
like
incredible.
it's like it's so celebratory. It is like a true shift in the energy of that culture because like on a day-to-day basis that culture is so collective in the like you know they are selfless kind of like in the they it's for the group, it's not for me. Like there's that in America we have that individual expression, in China it's a collective. And you have this moment where it's like no, I it's like the one time that you really know that you're going to see your family and you're going to be connected with yourself and the things that are important to you. And it's beautiful to see how an astrological movement, the Lunar New Year,
Mhm.
is the impetus for a group of people to pause and say, I'm going to connect with what matters and
Wow.
go back, right? It's not arbitrary. Like for me, it's also not arbitrary. It's not like a random date that was selected in a calendar. It's like when the moon
Mm.
is new in the year, like after a full phase, we're going to recollect, we're going to reestablish what matters and move forward. And using these beautiful traditions, like using specific colors and eating specific foods, like it's just beautiful. I learned how ritual like is nourishing.
Mhm.
And the last thing is also how culture is different. Like, you know, it's weird to say, but like people, we act as my experience, especially through coaching, is there's an assumption that everyone, why doesn't everyone understand that? Like they should have known that I wanted to do that. They should have known that that was rude. And it's like, to who? From what perspective?
Right. Because God
Because
forbid someone has different life experience than you.
right, like my experiences, like Russia is a very formal culture, and smiling and like these like Latin American or American niceties are feel contrived. They feel fake. And not because they're not kind people. They're kind people within their own context. We just don't understand that context. So
Mhm.
when you understand that Russia is literally a cold country because of where it is, and it's not, it doesn't express uh connection and expressing their feelings and values in the same way we do doesn't mean they're bad people or they're
Mhm.
mean people or they're rude people. It's just, oh, they're just Russian. Like they don't express like we do. Just like, you know, when Americans go to other countries, people think we're stupid or we're weird because I mean, so we sometimes we act up in a way that we forget that we're not on our land.
Mm.
And, you know, so that there's this entitlement energy or this, you know, super like happy go lucky, because we were raised in America to be happy go lucky, to go for the goal, to
Right.
like we can shoot for the stars, go for the moon, where other countries are like, you know, tone it down, kid, like buy a cow and make, you know, be happy you have milk every day, you
Right.
know. So there's this inherent um cultural impact, there's a stellar impact, there's a ritual impact, there's a, you know, there's all these like pieces of the puzzle, and when we put them together it's like, oh, look how beautiful it is together.
Mm.
And we don't have to take that piece out to feel okay or safe.
So taking from your travel, right, and seeing all these different cultures, which I agree, kindness is a social construct. We all want to be kind, but we also have to be kind within our social construct. So I find kindness to be a really interesting word. But you talk about travel, all these different cultures and places, and then you have your astrology, which has all these different signs and this planet on this house and this thing, and also human design. How do you define identity from all these different aspects?
Oh my God. I'm so glad. I'm so, it's amazing that you say that. because I'm starting I'm getting ready to launch a self-paced online course on using
Ooh,
astrology to coach yourself. And I divided it into three phases. I'm about to geek out. So I do have a
go for it.
master's. It's in health and wellness coaching,
Mhm.
not from like the eat your vegetables, but more like let's calm down your central nervous system wellness perspective. And I had to learn about behavior change from an academic model. And so there's an actual thing called the theoretical model of behavior change. It has many layers, but for me, I kind of broke it down into, are you aware of who you are and what you're doing? Are you prepared to shift that behavior?
Mm,
And what are you going to do to shift it? And then are you maintaining that behavior? And so the first phase of my program, I use a specific astrological placement to say, who are you? I called it identitas, like the Latin word for identity.
mhm,
So the inner planets from astrology are the ones that impact our own personality the most. Because when we look at the outer planets like Uranus or Pluto, that represents like bigger like ranges of ages and years. So that has like more of a generational impact. Whereas the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, maybe even Mars are have that combination specifically have more of a direct impact on who you are and
mm,
how you express as a person. And so when we understand those inner planets and how we relate to them, then we can go ahead and be like, oh, I'm not just a Aries sun or a Libra sun. That's why we ask the big three. Although I also think Venus and Mars are important, right? And there are other placements in that, for example, Saturn is how we're being responsible in our life, right? Like the way I see astrology now is from coaching. Like the sun is, am I doing things or am I being who I'm supposed to be? The moon is, okay, like, yes, it's the emotions, but how am I also nourishing those emotions?
mm,
And so when we understand those like intricate little pieces, astrology helps us actually understand our personality. And it's also
mm.
interesting because in human design, the little map. So if you're not familiar with human design, it's like a newer assessment. It brings in the Chinese I Ching, astrology, the Kabbalah, and the chakras all into one system to
Oh
understand
wow.
how your field interacts in the quantum field. And the way you get your design is your birth chart. So all the lines that light up the I Ching in the design are your birth chart. And all the red lines, known as the subconscious lines, are based on the idea that your soul comes into your body 3 months before you're born. And then your birth chart are known as the personality lines, whereas the red lines, your design lines, are your subconscious lines. And so even in these methodologies, you see how, yes, your birth chart is your personality. It's the identity of your personality. But what I love, it's also you don't if you there are different ways to express that personality. So yeah, Aries are known to be like a little temperamental and like a little fiery, and they're also leaders. They're also initiators. So when we understand the full spectrum of what the signs mean and how they express, then we can decide, am I being the shadow of this sign or am I being the highest expression of the sign?
Interesting. So, yeah, we do live in a world of duality, and yin yang is like one of my favorite like symbols to just ponder on. And I love that you brought through the idea of shadow sign and at the same time the light side, right? Being versus doing, the subconscious aspect of it. Yeah, identity is definitely something difficult to define. This spiritual work to me is a really interesting one because you kind of, it feels like sometimes you have to redefine yourself or question your own identity. Do you see that in a lot of your clients, and how do they get to like quote unquote the other side?
Beautiful. So the way I always so I have two like little like subtitles when I talk about astrology. Astrology to me is the psychology of our ancestors, because
Mm,
that's the ancestors knew like, okay, you're born under this influence, like let's watch you in this way. That's how astrology was used, right? It's a guiding system. For me, astrology is also a compassion compass, because
wow.
the reason we turn ourselves inside out, so when the work is not being used responsibly, we're being made to turn ourselves inside out to be someone we're not. When the work is being used responsibly, it is a mirror to say, is this what you want to see in yourself? If not, how can we support you in being the highest version of yourself, not a better version of yourself, not a different version of yourself, because you're always going to be you. You can just choose to up level the way you're expressing yourself, or you could choose to be stuck or like be not responsible with yourself, with the world around you. So for me, that's the other thing about this work. Like if you're not being responsible with these tools, people are going to take it literally, and then they're going to go out and create this false narrative of what this work is and how it's expressed and why it should be used. This work is a mirror. This work is a mirror of what's working, what's not working. And then when you understand, when you're looking at the mirror is not for you to beat yourself up. It's for you to be like, oh, I've got 3 planets in the 9th house in a Sagittarius stellium. That's why I always like languages. That's why like I needed to travel for a decade. Like I used to tell people in college, I was learning Portuguese. I'm gonna date myself in 1997 when no one was taking Portuguese classes, let me tell you.
Oh my
And
God.
everyone's like, Ilona, what are you gonna do with that? And I'm like, I don't know. So, and I said, someday someone's gonna pay me to travel the world for them. That's all I know. And I did it. I didn't know. I didn't say I was going to be a college recruiter. I didn't say I was going to work for a corporation. I didn't say I was going to be famous. All I knew is that, and people would look at me straight. And for a while, I'm like, everyone's like, you should be doing computers. That's what's happening now. That's where the world is going.
The way
And
for
I'm
the
like,
future, yeah.
but I'm like, but I don't like computers, because guess what? I have no Aquarius in my chart. Aquarius is where you might find someone who's like interested in like computers.
Mm.
And it doesn't mean that if you're not Aquarius, you don't like computers, but like I didn't even have anything in my chart to indicate that I might really want to go technological. Like a lot of my chart is networking, meeting people, healing stuff, and traveling and speaking. Like that's like the energy of my chart. And then I got to actually go, oh, like this is what I'm supposed to do. I don't have to beat myself up for not having learned stock market. I don't have to beat myself up for not having gone in computer science. I don't have to beat myself up for not having gone to the international, like there was like this insurance company that like I got an interview for and I hated it. My father was like, that was a good job. And I'm like, I would have hated my life.
Oof.
And now I don't have to be upset. I can be like, I was aligned with my highest expression.
That's incredible. Was there something in your, taking it more personal now, was there something in your process of learning astrology and learning about yourself, right? Because it sounds like you always kind of followed your heart, and you follow, I want to learn this, I want to do this, and it's just, you kind of follow this inner fire and this inner question of what else can I learn?
Yeah.
But as you were learning about your chart and yourself and your own astrology and human design, was there something that made you like have a quote unquote dark night of the soul where you're like, I don't like this and I'm gonna have to wrestle with this for a while? You don't have to get too personal if that's too
oh yeah, I can absolutely.
Okay, good, that's what I wanted.
The first thing for me is the North Node. When I learned the North Node, which a lot of people don't understand in the chart, the North Node is kind of like the thing that you really get to embrace. It's the thing we resist. It's like, no, I don't wanna. Now, some people get to it faster. They heal whatever is in the way of getting there, right? Also, because in astrology, we have these things called aspects. So how the planets in a chart ping pong energetically off of each other. Sometimes it could be favorable. Sometimes there's tension. So if someone has like some favorable aspects to the North Node, it might not be so hard. But I have a North Node in Virgo in the 9th house. And everyone's like, Ilona, please translate. And so North Node is my challenge. And Virgo, so from memes, we know that Virgo is like OCD and organized, but Virgo is a healer. And so she often represents like literal physical health. And the 9th house is like spirituality and higher learning. And so, you know, for me, the North Node in Virgo sometimes really is about like getting my health straight. And, you know, you saw me right before the pandemic, I lost 30 pounds. During the pandemic, I gained 30 pounds. Right now, I'm back on trying to lose that 30 pounds. And every time I am rigorous with my health, which is what Virgo is going to do, my spirituality ascends. So you get, so the planet or the placement is the what. The way you express it is through the outfit of the sign it's in, and you get the payout or the lesson in the house it's in. So every time I take care of my health, I up level. I learn something about myself, about my spirit, I bring in new philosophies. So every time I'm being not responsible with my health, like I get stuck. And oh yeah, I gained 30 pounds. And oh boy, I was stuck for 2 years. And then I woke up recently. I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta clean that up again. Cause every time I clean it up, things go really well for me.
That opens up my eyes a lot, because when it comes to any kind of like self-help work, right, or self-growth, self-development, my mind, and maybe a lot of people's minds, to go to, I got to read more books, I have to meditate longer, I need to study more with Deepak Chopra, right? And I need to go to like India and have this deeply spiritual experience. And not to deny that those are deeply spiritual, but it sounds like your spiritual ascension and like self-knowledge, and as you kind of said, like downloads and stuff, comes from you just taking care of your health. Something that's, for lack of a better word in my mind, mundane, right? Or may seem mundane on the surface, but beneath the surface, you're going through this kind of like awakening, is what it sounds like.
Oh my God. Every time, because here's the truth. Everyone comes with a different mission.
Mm.
And so some people do need to go travel to India to do the pilgrimage, to do that, right? That might be something for them. For me, it was like, oh, I have cultivated such a mind and such a spirit. And it's like, yeah, but you're in the meat suit for this journey, and you got to take care of that meat suit, because if you don't take care of the meat suit, that spirit and mind are only going to go so far. And it's funny because I'm also getting into gene keys, which is like something that's been span off of human design, where they focus on the gates. And like apparently in my so another dark night of the soul is I've always had this like false narrative in my brain. And I'm saying false narrative because I discovered recently it's false, that like I'm terrible with money. Why? Because so our human life will give us these false filters of who we are. And so for me, that's why the birth chart and all these tools are like, this is your true essence that you get to remember when you're in the fear of these false narratives. So my father had like money stories. And then I had an ex who like always kind of was like, you're bad with your money. You got to fix up your money. And so I had this thing where like dudes were telling me I'm bad with money. So I just was like, I'm just bad with money. Money is difficult for me. And then I found in my chart, I have an empty second house. And that's not actually bad. That means I can make as much or as little as I want. And here I'm telling myself, I'm never going to make money. And then I recently found out through Gene Keys that the purpose of my life is to make a lot of money. Why? Because because it says you probably have already cultivated mind and spirit. And so your job is to cultivate money so that all of it can come together for a greater purpose. And I'm like, I get to be rich. I get to stop telling myself I'm broke.
Yeah.
I get to stop being so hard on myself. And I also get to stop selling myself short. So that was also like that was really hard for me to like listen and be like, you've been in your own goddamn way, Ilona. What the F is your problem? Like it's you. It's not me. Am I the drama? No. I was the drama. I was the money drama.
Oh my God. Yeah. I've heard that a lot. Like, you're in your own way. And I'm like, what does that mean? But you have to go on that journey to kind of figure out what that means.
Yeah. And so everyone's going to have a different point. Like some people are great with money and have no spirit. Some people have a lot of spirit, but they're not using their minds. Like, and I'm sure, like there are people who are like so in the spiritual realm, but it's like they are in the land of the fairies and the rainbows, which is a beautiful place. Like we want the realists to be there, but we also need the people in the fifth dimension to remember that right now they're in this meat suit and they need to learn how to be in this meat suit.
Oh my God. Yes. There's a beautiful thing of like traveling, right? Quote unquote, like in a meditation or just in your own spirit of going to this 5D world and then coming back here. But I just find some people to be so escapist. I'm like, no. But I'm sorry, you're here right now and you got to deal with this right now. Otherwise, what do we keep telling ourselves? That we just, what resists persists, and like we're going to keep learning the same lessons over and over again. Might as well just deal with it now versus trying to be, I'm a star seed and I live up there. And it's like, well, but you're down here now.
You're here right now. Your starseed ass said, we're going to be on Earth for a few decades. Let's get it done.
Let's get it done. Speaking of getting it done, you as an entrepreneur, and I kind of want to put labels on you right now. And I want you to maybe demystify them or break them through for me. So I see you, of course, you're a woman, you're Latina, and you're an entrepreneur. What kind of unique challenges do you face as a business owner trying to push yourself forward and claim your space in this world?
That's a great question. Like the first thing that came up for me is like specifically the background piece, because, you do see specific people and specific faces and specific bodies, certain looking
Mhm.
bodies in the wellness and spiritual entrepreneurial space. And so I remember when I was starting my journey, I was like, no one looks like me, so I need to look like them. I need to have the same
Oh god.
branding. I need to use the same words. Like I have to, like there was this almost like I have to mimic. And then there was one day it's like, look, I'm a nerd. I'm Latina and I'm a nerd and I'm chubby and I'm not like a yoga, like a Western yoga body. And I get to
Mhm.
be okay with that. And so I think, and that took a long time. Like I got my first coaching certificate in 2013. And I know for a fact that I held myself back from doing something with that work because I'm like, I don't look like everyone else.
Mm.
Because especially in 2013, like this is when Instagram was just starting, when people were just becoming influencers. Like that was just like a new thing. And so for me, it was like the dichotomy of like, here I am, like sitting on planes next to Deepak Chopra miraculously, and like somehow sourcing to be Teal Swan's like car ride for like one of her first New York shows or like presentations. And I'm doing this, and yet I feel like I'm not enough because I'm Latina, because I'm chubby, because I'm not actually in those inner circles, instead of being like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to do it. And so like breaking through, like you get to the point as an entrepreneur where you have to tell yourself, am I willing to go all in? And here's more nerdiness. I don't know if you've heard of Renier Maria Rilke. He was a writer, like
Yeah, Roca, yes.
Rilke. So he wrote Letters to a Young Poet. And so it was literally back in the day. By the way, I love epistolary romances. That's a fancy way of like getting, like falling in love through letters. And
Mm.
so it was an epistolary, a book about a young poet who wanted to be one. And so he would write Rilke, like, I want to do this. I want to do what you do, dude. This is like fangirling back in the day through letters. And there's a point where Rilke was like, listen, if you cannot imagine, and I'm like not quoting this directly, but the essence was, if you can imagine your life without being a poet, then you're not a poet. But if you cannot imagine being able to breathe, to live, to continue to be in this existence without writing, then you, my friend, are a poet. And so for me, whenever I do things, I think about, can I live without this? And so if I cannot live without this, then I'm willing to do everything that it takes to make this happen. So for example, I wanted to be a singer. So before I finished high school, I sang with the Latin recording artist twice,
My god.
but it didn't go great. I met the manager, it didn't go great. But at the same time, I was like, I remember reading that book a year later and being like, can I live without singing? Absolutely. Singing is not going to make or break me, but there are people where singing will not being able to sing professionally will break their spirit. And so that's when I knew I wasn't a singer. I'm like, okay, I'm not a singer. So I became a karaoke fan. But when I learned about coaching and spiritual teachings, I lose my breath at the thought of like not being able to always be in this work. Like I not only have paid clients, but I volunteer in transformational coaching containers because that's how much I believe in this work. So I cannot, I once again, I went on a first date like last week and they were talking about like, yeah, and we'll probably live 80 years and people probably retire on this age. I'm like, I will probably never retire from this work. Like I really like it I didn't, my brain, I like immediately, it was like a reflex. My body was like, I will never retire. I will never. This work will be with me until my last breath.
That's amazing. I definitely second that because I don't know. I can't imagine. I mean, I think when I'm 80 or 90 or something, I definitely want life to be slower and more chill and like I'm not doing this for the grind and the money. But I don't know. I also don't see myself stopping learning and stopping growing.
So all that to say that the thing is, if you're an entrepreneur, get clear on your intention. If your intention is to make money, it will not last. If your intention is this is what you came here to do, get ready, buckle up your seatbelt and get ready to go all in.
Wow. That's good motivation right there from the postmodern oracle. Now, walk me through your services that you offer.
Yeah. So I primarily function as an astrology informed life coach. So I have a form, it's interesting. I have a health and wellness coaching master's, but I would say 80 to 90% of the curriculum was really learning ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation standard. So most of my degree was, what is coaching? What are the ethics? How does one coach? So for me, that's why I kind of released the health and wellness part and embrace the esoteric part. So for me, I coach people to their life purpose or to whatever their goal is, but through the lens of their astrology to understand what's in the way, what are their gifts, and who they get to be to make it happen.
Now, I feel like life coach has become this umbrella term, right? For, let's say, I'm a tarot card reader myself, and I'm sure some sort of coaching comes in, or maybe not, maybe I'm wrong, but that's the question I'm leading to. Is I need to, when I'm giving advice and pulling cards and messages, I need to say something. That's why I love psychology, and I find this coaching aspect to be interesting, but I'm definitely not up to your caliber of a master's. But so what language and title, yeah, you're like the word nerd, so like
Yeah.
what language would you use?
Well, and this is so interesting too, because there are actual distinctions of titles. And so, for
Mhm.
example, like for me, a responsible user of tarot and astrology and all those things are going to support not just giving the message, but allowing the person the reflection needed to then embody the message, right? Because how many times do you get a card reading, you're like, great, now I know that, like, I know what you're saying, but then you do nothing with it,
Oh
right?
God, yes.
So those people are literally readers, like literally they're just readers, and that's great. That's their title. They're card readers, or
Yeah.
tarot or oracle card readers. Then coach is a specific industry where the individuals who are calling themselves that primarily lead with curious inquiry. So it's not about like, okay, I'm going to tell you what to do. Like it's like very rarely, unless the client is absolutely stuck or the coach is an expert in the field that they're asking on, that a coach is going to give you information or give you the answers. The point of the coach is to be like, oh, so I'm hearing that fear is involved. Tell me a little bit more about that. What's underneath that? Where did that stem? Like, what would it look like for you to not have that fear? So what can you do now? Right. So it's leading with questions to get the client who inherently knows what they want. So we believe that coaches believe that clients know exactly what they want. They just need that like coaching inquiry and like support to like pull it out of them. And so that's a coach. Now, if someone is leading with answers or support, that might be mentoring, that might be an advisor role, right? That might be a counselor role,
Mm.
because those three roles are more of like, I have a certain level of expertise or I have a certain level of insight, and so I'm going to give you the information that's coming through to me, and I'm going to recommend that this is the way. And that's not a bad or a wrong thing, because if someone is like, listen, I just want advice, then you need to make sure that you're going to the right person for the right thing. And also, if you're a coach, then you get to be like, hey, I don't give you the answers. I'm going to pull out the possibilities that exist with you so you can pick the one you want. Whereas an advisor, a mentor might be more like, okay, listen, you want to make six figures? This is what you're going to do. First, you're going to open this website, then you're going to do this, then you're going to like, that is a distinction. A coach isn't going to tell you the steps. They're going to ask you the questions. That's a distinction.
I love that. Thank you so much for that. That's beautiful. And I think that you made it incredibly clear on what the distinction is. Now, something else that I know that you do is you classify yourself as a color reader.
Yeah.
Talk me through that. What does that mean?
That was my first magical practice that I did. So when I had this full-time job that was like slinging me around the world, I was like, I got to do something. I get to do something with this work. And I was into essential oils. Like I was like a multi-potentialite. Like I'm like, I don't just want to do one reading, or I just don't want to do essential. And I don't just want to, I want to, how do I bring this all together?
Yes.
And I want to say it was like 2014 or 2015. And I ended up in a Google Hangout, the things we used to do back in the day, with this guy, Bernard Charles. And he was talking about how he's creating an oracle deck based on the magic of color, but that pulled in all these different modalities like herbs and essential oils and crystals and spiritual ideas. And I was like, I'm paying attention to you, dude. Like, this is magic. And when he released his deck, he created a certification. And so I was the first color mage, color oracle certified reader. And it was a deck. So it was an oracle deck. So you can probably give the distinction between oracle and tarot, because some people think that they're interchangeable. I'm like, no.
No.
And so it was an oracle based on the chakras from the root to the crown, or I mean, from the root to the third eye originally, and then he expanded. But the certification was understanding the chakras, understanding the energy behind the message of each card. And it was interesting because I tried tarot before I had my awakening, and I was like, never connected. Like every time I put the cards out, I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what it's saying here. And
I get that.
when I got this deck, I would do my trial readings to get certified, and people were crying, and I'm like, what did I
Wow.
say? And they're like, how did you know that? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm just reading the cards. Like this is like, it's the cards. And that was like my first real connection with an outside tool that connected with my intuition to be of service to someone else.
Mm,
And so even though I have other oracle decks and I bring them as kind of like a closing card to the reading, all of my card readings, my oracle readings, are based on this deck that's based on the philosophy of colors, philosophy of the chakra system, and all the multi-spiritual disciplines that each card will then pull in depending on the message that you get.
that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm always grateful to him. Like he's not really doing this work anymore, but he will also be always be in like my bio and the shout out notes. Like Bernard really pulled it out of me.
That's incredible. Yeah, and I have his deck too. Unfortunately, it is out of print, but it really is an incredible deck to work with.
It is.
And surprisingly easy. I don't say it's easy to read for everybody, but I was surprised that like, oh, I'm actually getting this, and I'm pulling out. But contrary to you, I'm definitely a tarot card, and I love tarot. But then I expanded into Oracle, and I was like, oh, this is a really good one.
Yeah. Yeah. And tarot's a system, kind of like astrology. For me, tarot's like a system. There
Yes,
is a fixed system. Like I can't invent something different with astrology. I mean, like human design is kind of like pulling in astrology, but I can't create a new astrology system. I can't.
that's true. Yeah, you can't pull in Taurus, and it's completely different than what
Yeah.
we already know it to be. Now, your color journey, a little birdie told me, you told me, it's taking you somewhere. Can you share some of that story with us?
Yes, I'm so excited. So next year, around this time next year, I will be officially a published author.
Oh my
And
God.
I know it's like there are moments where I'm like, is this real life? I'm excited. I feel very honored. And what excites me the most is that it is a journey through color, and it's specifically a journal. And so like what I love about this, it brings all of like, I had a lot of brain dumping because I have a lot of information in my brain, as y'all can tell. And it allowed me to like take all the knowledge that I have from culture, from language, from life, bring in some journal prompts, so coaching questions, right? Ultimately, journal prompts are self-coaching questions,
Mhm.
and then some other fun things to help people navigate their life through color, through curious inquiry / coaching, and other modalities that help sink in the messages. And I'm really excited because, one of the things that I did learn through Bernard and through the Color Mage Color Oracle deck is how impactful color can be, right? I'm originally from New York and New Jersey. Like I was kind of like in an emo scene, or like hung out with like certain musicians, and I had this habit of always wearing black, even
Mm,
though I'm very joyful. But it's really interesting how, as I started to lean into wearing more color here and there, like wearing certain colors definitely evoked different reactions from people being like, oh, like I would either get more attention, or maybe I'd get more conversations or more connections when I didn't just wear all black.
how interesting. Is the book going to be colors and journal prompts, but do the colors follow the chakra system? Or
That's a great question. No, it will not, because it was more on like the idea of color theory.
love
Some
that?
of them will refer to it, right? Like, so I did sprinkle in like some themes on some of the colors, right? Because because you can't deny your knowledge of the chakras, but
That's true.
it's not based on the chakra system.
Okay, good. I love that because then it's a whole different system that we get to dive in and learn from.
Yeah.
So sign me.
Yeah, and like you've seen me where like I see symbolism in everything. So there'll also be like symbols that represent the color. So like the idea is not just bringing in the color, but bringing in the symbol that is of that color to kind of land the message of what we're working through. And I can't say more, but it's just gonna be really fun because like not only will you have a color, but you'll have like a visual image of something that you can hold onto as you're navigating that journal prompt, that emotion, that thing that you're working through. And so it's like so many levels. There's visual, there's color, there's emotional, there's like mental writing. It's just like
Wow.
it's gonna bring in a lot of different elements, and I'm excited about that.
I'm excited too. Do you get to work a little more closely with the design department to like they get the symbols correctly or something?
That's a great question. We've just initiated design phase, so I
Oh,
will
okay,
keep you
okay.
posted. But my understanding is that they probably will have the drafts, and then I get to kind of put some input. But this is a publishing. It's actually a publishing house, so there'll be real designers and real teams being like, "This is the direction we got to go." And I'm sure I get to give feedback, and I'm excited about that part too.
Oh my God, that's awesome. So I've got some final questions for you. This one you've kind of already answered, but I'm going to ask anyway, just in case you want to expand on it. But what does your spiritual path mean to you?
What does my spiritual path mean to me? Um, for me, my spiritual path for me is a reminder that we matter, right? Because I think, I've experienced some people who truly believe that there's nothing that happens when we leave here, and that we are insignificant in relation to the cosmos. And I recently rewatched I Heart the Huckabees. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but
Yes.
it's a movie on existentialism. And there's like this feeling when you get out of the movie, like everything is nothing and nothing is everything. And so for me, my spiritual path for me is my calling to believe that I matter, that whatever I do has impact. And I can't make everyone believe that, but I can make anyone who's open to listening my story create the possibility that they matter, and then act and contribute to the world in a way where they also believe they matter.
I need a moment with that. That was deep and really incredible. And it touched me because I think you're right in a way that I find a lot of people come to spirituality, right? Sure, some of us are raised in it, right? Some of us come to it, but I feel like when we do come to it, we're coming it from a place. Maybe I'm projecting or something, but I feel like most of us are coming from a place of we're not feeling great. We don't feel like we matter. We feel insignificant, or we're going through something really difficult, and we start looking for something bigger than ourselves. And maybe we've tried religion, and that maybe quite didn't quite work out that well. But we can't deny that religion and spirituality don't cross paths at some points, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I loved that answering very much. What is something that people get wrong about you?
Mm. Okay, this is a great one. So I think there are a few things. Like I think that people seeing my confidence in the way I show up in my work means that like I've made it, or like that I'm rolling in money, and like I'm not broke, but like for me, I do this work because of what it means to me. And so I have the intention of showing up in that way,
Mm,
knowing that the abundance will come. And so because like some people are like, well, why are you charging that much? Don't you make enough money? And I'm like, I'm
uh,
not even charging that much. Do you know what other coaches charge? And so like thinking that like I'm at a certain level. I also one thing that people get wrong about me is so it's so funny because I've had clients that are like, I can't believe that you worry about that, like thinking that I just because I mean, I don't want to be like I'm so wise, but like I've accumulated a lot of knowledge, and I've learned to embody a lot of what I've learned. And
mm.
so there's this misconception, even in my family, like sometimes my mom will be like, "You're a coach, you should know better." And I'm like,
Oh my God.
listen,
It's like,
I'm a
no.
human. I'm a human. I'm gonna get mad sometimes. And because of the tools, I can bounce back, I can clear it out faster and more efficiently and without damage, right? Because some people, even when they create little hurricanes or earthquakes in their life, they don't even know how to clean it up. So like I'm really good at like, oh, you know what? I made a mistake. I want to acknowledge my breakdown. And this is what I'm committed to moving forward. I'm gonna let you know before it's happening, or I'm gonna let you know while I'm mad that I'm mad so that we can kind of like chill. But I've learned the tools, but it doesn't mean I don't get pissed. It doesn't mean I don't get jealous. It doesn't mean I don't compare myself, right? It just means that I do a better job of managing that for myself so that it doesn't keep me from creating the life I want to create. Because my experience is that a lot of people use these things as the reason, like, well, I didn't do this work because they already did it. And it's like, okay, but you could have done it. And there are people who don't like that person who would have wanted to do this work with you. Like, why did you limit yourself? And so I don't limit myself anymore because of it.
I love that. That's what pushes me too. Like, even in this podcast, like, it took me a while to really do it. Like, it's been in my mind for years, right? And I've already kind of interviewed you a little bit, but like I said earlier, it needed to mature. Definitely, I needed to mature too. But it took me a while because I'm like, well, there's so many out there, and everyone's like talking about something, whatever. And I'm like, but no, not everyone is me. And right. And why, again, we'll go back to your question, what is possible for me? Um, why can't I like move forward and put myself in the caliber of, I don't know, Brene Brown or Jay Shetty, right? Or Stephen Bartlett, like these people that have successful podcasts. But
Or Lewis Howes, like such a prolific podcaster.
which one?
Lewis Howes, The School of
Yes.
Greatness. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Incredible. So what's a memory that always makes you smile?
Oh my gosh. I have so many. Like I really I
Answer right
so,
there.
I really do. Like I started online dating again. It's like a challenge I have in my transformational coaching right now. They're like, Ilona, you shouldn't be single. And so one of the things that I wrote, I'm like, I've cultivated a life that I love. Like, so I mean, I could say the time I met Paul Walker randomly before Fast and the Furious, and he was like
That's
super nice
amazing.
to me sitting on a plane next to Deepak, but then also like just beautiful, like simple memories of like watching the World Cup soccer with my dad, like a few years before he died, or like, taking care of my sister after her traumatic accident are like memories that always live with me because it's what cultivated a deeper sisterhood that I had with her. Or like our vibe tribe when we used to go on the beach before the world
Yes.
shut down and like be of contribution to the world. So I mean, I really had like my first trip for work. Like I had my first trip for work for my first job that made me travel was like to Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'd never been out of the East Coast. I'm like, I'm going to New Mexico. And within landing, I met an Indian Sikh and I had known about Bollywood. And like we had the most amazing connection conversation. And he had gifted me this like clay Buddha that he'd just bought in India.
Oh, wow.
And on the same trip, like here I am going for work, but then so I had the spiritual connection. And then I met a lady from Puerto Rico who was representing a university because I used to work for universities. And she was like, I have an extra day. Who wants to take a trip to Taos with me? And like, we went on this road trip and she ended up being like a Reiki master. And like, I had like a major spiritual connection with her. And like, here I'm like, what is happening? And that's like a core memory for me. Cause it was like, even before the workplace abuse, it was like this core memory of like, there's more to this life than paying your bills and pushing the paper and getting the goal at your work. Like we have a bigger purpose, a bigger impact. So, and I can keep on going, but like, I'll keep it at those, because I just have so many great core memories of like I used to do t-shirts and tote bags for bands. It was like the coolest thing
That's
to
cool.
like have like these emerging bands like in my apartment as like we hand screen printed t-shirts. And like then I was a merch girl at a show and I'd be like, yeah, it's gonna be this much. I'm literally with the band,
You just sound so cool.
Well, and that's that because I lived in a world of possibility, right? I had a full-time job while doing that. And other people are like, you shouldn't be doing that. You have a job. And I'm like, who says I can't do that? Who says
Yeah.
I can't do that? And my invitation to anyone listening is if you're like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. My invitation is why? And if this is something that you desire, if you desire more than the life you had, my invitation is for you to inquire what is possible in the best case scenario, what else can I be doing right now to start feeling like I'm living the life that I want?
Oof. Oof. Everyone out there, just write that down and ponder on it for a while. Seriously.
It only
Um,
took me 20 years,
just basic. So we talked about your card and how you have card readings and all that. Do you have a favorite card that when it comes out, you're like, yes?
Oh my gosh, it actually depends on the deck. So from the Color Mage Color Oracle, I love a few of them. Like there's this one, it's number 44. It's like this pretty pink card. It's like a feminine aspect of the heart, and it's make a wish. I love wishes,
Oh, I
right?
like
Magical
that.
realism. I also love one of the solar plexus cards. It's Firefly. It's all about illumination. So and there's one that's it's a ruby red rose. It's like following your soul path. So those are like, obviously it's also like my work. So I'm like, when someone gets it, I'm like, yes, we get to coach on this. You're gonna live your best life. Let's
Oh my
illuminate
God.
it. But then there are like from the I love the Meg Watterson Divine Feminine
That's a
Oracle.
beautiful one.
It is so good. And so like I there are some cards that rarely come out, like the Virgen de Guadalupe rarely comes out, but the just like the imagery of that, like the Yemanja card, like anytime Yemanja is out, like I learned through Walter Mercado the Orishas, and like Yemanja was always my girl. So I'm like, yeah, she's here. So yeah, like I have a few that I'm like, oh, this is a good one. This is such a good one.
Funny you bring her name up, Yemanja, because she's been on my mind for a few days now. And I'm like, is this a confirmation that I need to connect? Probably.
She's calling you. Go to the water, go to the sea.
Sounds like she is. And I come from a town where it's like a beach town. And I remember having a statue like at the beachfront of like this mermaid, and it's meant to be her.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
And her feast day. So we're recording this on February 21st, but her feast day, if I'm not mistaken, in Brazil is February 3rd or February 4th. So we're in the month of her feast day.
oh man.
Yeah.
Okay. No wonder I'm hearing the call or something. That's awesome. Thanks for the confirmation. I
You're
appreciate
welcome. She was channeling through me.
it. Yes, let the spirit speak. So, what's a book, movie, quote, song, something that you love so much you want to share with everybody?
My gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. So like me, I used to joke that music was the blood that run through my veins.
I love
And
music so much. You can pick
oh my
just
gosh.
all the music.
Well, I just I like way too much music. Like I literally love way too much music because I was in it. But I think what I want to go towards is probably movies, because for me, I think there's a lot of like film and media that allow us to explore, like, so the movies that I love tend to explore my consciousness. So like I Heart the Huckabees, I just rewatched. But I always think of Cloud Atlas. I feel like Cloud Atlas, I don't know if you've watched that one. It's got like Tom Hanks and the I think she's a Korean actress, the one who was in Sense8, I forget her name. So it's got
Oh,
like,
yeah.
yeah, so it's a very interesting movie. And for me, the way I felt it was like this expression of like how souls interact throughout different times and spaces.
Mhm.
And it is a very, there's a very conscious part of it where one of the characters is basically speaking to the world, and how like it's like a call for, you know, we are all connected. And like it's a weird narrative because it's anachronistic. Like it's like there'll be different times of life and civilization that they weave in and out, and you're like, okay, well, we're 1970, we're in the colonial times, oh, we're in post apocalyptic future. But it all weaves together, and it really is a reminder of like what happens in the world when we really reach like a higher consciousness. I also love trippy movies like Run Lola Run from back in the day, like anything that makes you go, what is life, like what is life, like the Matrix, like the
Oh
OG
yeah,
Matrix, like I mean, hello. Like
that one for sure.
yeah.
I remember watching Run Lola Run when I was young, and I remember having that feeling of like, what? But I don't remember anything about that movie. I need to watch it again.
So Run Lola Run is the idea that what is life, like how one shift of a movement could literally change an entire timeline. So you see the movie, and you see the movie like a few times with the shift of like a movement, a turn, or like a behavior. And so you see, it's like you see this pattern, but like if someone took one turn and not the other, then like what would have happened in that
Right.
timeline. And so this is why I love these movies from like the space of possibility,
Mm,
because once again, that's like the point, right? Like what's possible? Cloud Atlas, what's possible when the world is not working best? Run Lola Run, what happens like if you just shift one behavior, how the entire timeline changes? The Matrix, what happens when you realize that you are the one and
mm.
you matter and you can change the world because you believed you matter, right?
Oh man, yeah. The big messages of we can change the world by changing ourselves or believing in ourselves and that light within.
I also have like 3 top TV shows that I tell everyone that like I'm like they're amazing. The Fringe, if you've never watched Fringe, it's like sci-fi plus timelines plus like the future plus quantum physics.
Oh my God.
Amazing. It's on Amazon Prime. Chuck. Chuck is my favorite show in the world. I've probably reseen it like 3 or 4 times, and it's about like this nerdy comp sci guy, but it's also about like the possibilities. Like he was a nerd, like a nerd who like had no future and like was a contribution to the world. And so yeah, if it's about like how you can be a contribution, I'm in. And also Sliders, that's a really old one, that's a really like underground one.
Is it?
And it's all about like what happens to the world if there was a wormhole that portaled us to like the same day but in a different timeline, where like maybe penicillin wasn't invented or electricity was never invented, and
Oh
how
wow.
like how the world would be now if those things never happened. An exploration, a philosophical exploration through TV on that. It was so good.
Holy crap. Okay. I'm writing these down and I'm definitely like taking a journey with these shows. And final question, how can people connect with you?
So I have a website that has always been under construction for the past few years, but I swear it's going to get back up. So Ilona Pamplona, anything. Soon the website will be up. My website that's there now is totally not representative of the work I do. So right now, Instagram is my jam. I'm also working on TikTok because it's just really fun over there. Like I'm having fun. It's nothing serious, but like I love connecting on any of the new platforms. Oh, and I'm starting a Telegram channel where I'll be able to connect in case, you know, the apocalypse of the censorship. So there was a rumor recently that astrology and tarot cards will be banned. And so I'm like, you know what? You never know. I'm not saying that I believe it, but you know, it doesn't hurt to have different places for people to find us.
Yeah. Same. I freaked out too, and I started a Discord.
Oh, I have not joined that yet.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll. So just if you're looking for me on different platforms, I'm always at Ilona Pamplona. Just find me there.
Yeah, same. It's funny because like I took my cell phone, like you've been through this journey with me, but like I changed my name
Handle.
quite a few times. And now I'm Icaro Tarot everywhere and I love it. Like everything is the same. No one is, well, hopefully now no one's going to take it because I just yelled it out loud.
No,
but like,
nope.
you know,
You get to just open it all up.
exactly.
Even if you do nothing with it.
Exactly. I was going to take it in every platform, but you're right. It's just so much easier when everything is just so streamlined. You're like, no, this is it. This is it. This is me. I love that.
This is me.
Ilona, I could talk to you for 25 hours. I feel like your intelligence and your library of information just never ends, and it pours, and I learn and I'm enriched by it. So thank you so much for being a guest on here. You're awesome.
I love you. Thank you for letting me share.
I love you too. And there you have it. Our conversation with Ilona, covering astrology to life experiences to identity and what it means to be yourself on a cosmic level. You can find all of Ilona's links in the show description, and you can also find me in the show descriptions. If you guys want to work closer with me, you can join my Patreon page, patreon.com/Icaro Tarot. And there are monthly deities, angels, ascended masters paired with tarot cards. So we get a bit of tarot lesson and a bit of a deity lesson. I also have my YouTube channel with weekly videos of Spirit Sunday. We have spiritual reviews. And you can also find me on Instagram. Of course, I'm very active on there. And if you guys want a bit more of a private experience, you can join my Discord. Thank you all so much for your support. It really means a lot to me. And I want to give a shout out to an absolute champion who just joined the Patreon, Jenny Topaz. Thank you so much for being an absolute champion, and welcome to the Tarot fam. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you guys next time.